to the channel. My name is David. This is Fresh Faces New Ideas. Now, if you like the content that I do and you want to support me, please feel free to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas, or you can listen to me on the Center Left Radio podcast. So, for this video, I'm going to cover the PRO Act. Now, the PRO Act just passed in Congress earlier this week. It's, whether it'll be law is up to a couple different things. So, what I'm trying to do with these type of videos is explain what is going on with the law, some of the good, some of the bad, the opposition to it. But once again, a lot of these things that I'm talking about are irrelevant if there's nothing done about the filibuster. So this is mostly to show you the type of things that the filibuster is blocking. So what is the PRO Act? The PRO Act is the protect rights of workers to organize. That's protect the rights to organize. And it was passed in 2019, and then it was never brought up in the Senate. So now they're bringing it up. So the positive for this type of bill is Joe Biden has already signaled that he's going to be very pro-union. And that's what this bill is. It's a pro-union bill. One of the ways he did that was he had a statement that wasn't directed. He didn't name the organization, the organizing that's going on in Alabama in the Amazon factory directly, but he was very clear about people should be able to unionize and things like this. And unionizing is important because part of the reason we have had created a massive wealth gap is because of the decline in unions, and that's why a lot of unions support the Fight for 15 and things like that. And it is shown that unions generally have higher union jobs generally have higher wages. For example, in Alabama, they're currently arguing that they're already getting paid $15 an hour, so they don't need to unionize. However, in other Amazon factories, is fulfillment centers that have unions, they're getting paid $19 an hour. So by not having a higher minimum wage, they can get paid what the minimum wage should be, and that's considered more than enough to not have a union. There's also a lot of other things that Amazon was doing, whether they were changing the traffic lights, they were firing people. So we're going to go over, I'm going to show you a graphic, and then I'm going to go over the act, and we'll talk about what's in it. All right, so this is a graph from the Sunrise Movement, which is they generally do green energies type of stuff. So this is union membership and the share of income going to the top 10% from 1917 to 1915 or till 2015. So keep in mind, this graph has exploded in the opposite direction. So as we can see, about 1940, they hit, and then about 1960, unions fall, the top 10% explodes. And then keep in mind, since this has happened, we've had the Donald Trump $2 trillion tax cuts. We've had the first Donald Trump stimulus bill, which fired a money cannon at the wealthiest people in the world. And we have had the pandemic, which something like 60% of small businesses have closed, and the rich have basically gained $1 trillion richer. So this graph is just even more different. So having a union helps a lot. So let's take a look at what the PRO Act does and some of the things that are good and bad. So one of the problems with the current law. Under current law, employees can drag out the union election process. This process by which workers form a union in their workplaces through litigation with the National Labor Relations Board. The NLRB is the principal government agency responsible for enforcing the rights of private sector workers to organize and engage in collective bargaining agreements with their employees, but current law is preventing them from doing their job, giving too much power to the employees who are able to use delaying tactics to postpone that. So what the PRO Act does is the Labor Rights Relations Board and the unions and the workers select when the election happens. So the employees are not involved in it. This way they can force them not to delay tactics like having them organized in order to do the election. So one of the things Amazon also did was they would offer people like at $1,000, and this isn't generally new. This isn't something they just started with Alabama. They've been doing this for a couple of years, where they offer them a $1,000 bonus and then you quit. And this is they claim it's a way to help people move on to a different job. I'm sure there's some people who have done that, but a lot of it is designed to stop people from voting in unions. All right, so another thing. Employees have free reign to make their employers have free reign to make their employees attend captive audience meetings where the employers develop anti-union messages without giving the unions an opportunity to respond. So the Pro Act says you can't do this. So one of the things that happens is they're basically forced into these it's captive audience. So they're like forced to go to these seminars where they're just told how bad unions are, and if you don't show up to these seminars, they fire you. So the Pro Act says you can't do that, which makes sense. Okay, this is the good one. Employers who violate workers' rights under the National Labor Board face no civil penalties. So currently how it works is they don't face any penalties, and they basically have to do some back pay. But when you have some of these massive companies that are firing people who are trying to unionize, they just do it as a cost of being business. So now what this does is it faces civil penalties and goes after the corporate officials, so the people at top. So they're actually going after the ones who are in charge in order to make sure that that when they fire these people, the penalties are strict enough that it's not just considered, it's a cost of doing business. This is similar to when banks get regulated, when Wells Fargo has had multiple scandals in the last year, and they've been fined a couple $1 billion. But to them, that's nothing, because by the time the scandal is uncovered and they are actually fined for it, they've already made multiple times that number in profit. So it's they're just fine with it. They just consider, okay, we're gonna we'll take a little PR hit and then we'll be fine. Let's see. All right, so one of the things is that this is actually one of the things that I found to be a negative. So employers can misclassify workers as independent contractors, depriving those workers of the rights they would have as employees without violating the board. The PRO Act makes employees misclassification a violation under NLRA and requires employees to follow the ABC test for employee classification. An ABC test is a strict legal test for making sure employees are not misclassified as independent contractors. Now, this is good and bad. So, yes, it is good that it stops them from being mischaracterized. This is a lot of what Uber does. It clarifies their workers as gig workers, so it doesn't allow them to unionize. It doesn't have to give them certain benefits. There is a problem with this, though, and this has actually been tested out. One of the things is the ABC Act was designed in 1930s, so it has to be changed to be updated to the current status to cover certain jobs that have shifted or come around since 1930. The other thing is the California tried this, and they ran into some obstacles because the way the ABC test is, you have to clarify, you have to pass all three parts, or you don't, or you're considered an employee. However, the A and the C part are relatively easy, but independent contractors a lot of times end up failing the B part. Like, for example, if you're a freelance journalist, you end up failing that pretty often. There are some jobs that fall under this. Now, the solution to this would be to update the ABC Act or to add amendments to this actual act in order to allow certain jobs to just fall under this without having to lose their personal employee status. So if you started your own personal business, the ABC test would not make you an employee subject to something else. So that's something that actually needs to be looked at, is to make sure the ABC test is done. One of the other things it does is it overrides the states that have a right to work act. Now, if you're thinking, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. No, basically what right to work acts say is, if you work in a place that requires you to have union dues, you don't have to pay your union dues, but you still get covered by the union. Now, this is considered anti-union legislation because the unions need the dues in order to fight for better working conditions. So if I'm working for a union that gets me paid, $20 an hour, or they're fighting. So let's say I get paid whatever the minimum wage is in my state, $7.25, and they're fighting to get me $15 an hour. But I'm not paying my dues, so they can't afford to go to the lawyers and make these arguments, or to unionize, or to picket, or to provide materials, or whatever the union needs to do in order to make my life as a worker better. Maybe they're fighting for better protections for me because they don't have access to the same funds that they would in order to cover the expansion of workers that they have. They lose out on their bargaining power, and that's part of what this does. So when you phrase something like, right to work, you do have the right work. But what the right to work laws don't give you is the union protection. And the point of the unions is to, make your life better, protect you. Things like unions are why we have 5-day, 40-hour weeks. OSHA, things like that are why we have better protections for workers. So by cutting off their funding, unions can't do their primary objective, which is to help protect the workers. And also, this is generally done in red states. And the argument from a lot of red states is, well, why would you be a freeloader in the government if you're not going to, you shouldn't get government benefits, you're just being a freeloader. This is the same concept. You're getting union benefits by being a freeloader. If the union is fighting for you, you should be able to support them. And I agree against right to work. Let's see what else. They can't permanently replace you for striking. So if you're striking and they just fire you, you're now, what's the point of striking? That just takes the ability that's just another tool that the worker is gone. That's like one of the biggest tools. Look, obviously they can hire scabs or part-time workers and stuff to make it so that it is easier for them to function while your workers strike. But you still have to cross picket lines, and there's other things to do this. But what this does is, it makes it so that the union has more power. It gives them, the right to strike and not have to face, the same type of penalties that would normally be faced in order to break the union. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. So ultimately, where is this? This looks like a very good bill. It is one of the most pro-labor bills we've had in a very, very long time. Joe Biden appears to be one of the most pro-labor presidents at this moment by supporting this bill and supporting the Amazon workers. However, once again, the caveat to all of this is it will not matter unless they can either figure out how to get 10 Republicans to vote for this, although how that will happen, I have no idea, or they do something to change the filibuster. So if you like this video and you like the content that I make, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next time.